Kate, I'm sorry. I don't think things are gonna go well for our wedding tomorrow.
Wait, Roland? What's going on?
Ever since this morning, my dad has been saying the craziest things.
Like what?
He was screaming and yelling at me about how I'm trying to mix uneducated, low-life blood into our elite families.
Low-life blood?
I was wondering what he was doing when he left the house this morning, but then he came home with papers in his hand. Then he screamed out, "This marriage is off," before coming to me. The way he spoke about everything was all over the place, but I was able to get the gist of things. He was talking about your family that whole time. He rambled on and on.
My family? What was he saying about us?
My mom and I were able to get him to go into his office, and we're both waiting for him to calm down before we ask that same thing again. I'm sorry to ask this, but if we haven't figured out anything with him by tomorrow, you mind heading to the wedding venue before me? I'm gonna let the staff there know about this, and we'll come moments before the wedding all starts. And when I can, I'll do my best to explain what all happens with my dad by that time.
Understood. You don't have to talk with me all the time, but I'd like to be updated on this when you have your hands free.
Sure, I'll try my best to keep in touch with you throughout today and tomorrow. And if I haven't been able to get back to you for some time, you can go ahead and call or text me to get my attention. That would really help, actually.
All right, sounds good.
I really am sorry about this. Right now? Well, considering you had to be raised by those two monkeys, it only makes sense that you're unable to pick up on things normal human beings can. Now you listen very carefully, all right? In my family, every single one of us went to and graduated from a university. And if you'd like to know, they weren't just any universities, but only the best Ivy League schools in the U.S.
I don't really want to stomp on your parade there about people's educations, but I went and graduated from the same exact school as Roland.
And I'm sure you had to go there using federal grants and other things the government gives to the poor. You should have to go into debt in order to get an education.
I never received any grants or scholarships, and both my parents had to pay for me to go.
Stop lying to me. There's no way a couple of high school dropouts have that kind of money.
Sure, you're right that the both of my parents are different from most families and did not graduate from a university or anything. And considering that this world loves people that spend money to go to school over those that get an education outside of the normal system, they had to work really hard. But by the time I started to understand the real world, I wouldn't say that either of my parents were poor. Quite the opposite, actually.
I don't think a girl raised in a family of lowlifes has any idea what a proper family with money looks and feels like.
I really don't think there's much of a difference there, depending on the family one grew up in.
Anyhow, I will not allow for any of your foul, low-life blood to enter my elite family made up of only the most intelligent university graduates. We have no need for that disgusting blood in this family, so your marriage is off. I will not allow either of you to get married to one another. Don't you ever come around my elite family of university graduates again, you... already ordered Roland not to get married to you, but him not listening to me and going through with the wedding anyway has to have been your doing for sure.
But the one that chose to make sure that you weren't going to be a part of this wedding was Roland himself. Both your wife and your younger son also agreed to this and have been telling everyone the reason you're not here is due to you being very sick.
Excuse me? I was led to believe that everyone was still home and didn't go due to the TV being left on in the living room.
From what I hear, besides when you go to the bathroom, you are locking yourself in your home study and not coming out, right?
Are you really telling me that everyone went along with the wedding and not having me there that easily?
To be honest, a lot of thought went into this, but from the very beginning, the both of my parents have been very fond of Roland. And when it came to you,
Speak with your parents directly told me that they didn't want to hear a word from him.
well, I can understand why that was. Now, allow me to explain the situation for you then. Originally, you were put in charge of making very good relations with an up-and-coming company that's making a lot of money right now. You were supposed to go and learn all about said company and make a partnership with it in order to help your company as well. Well, it just so happens that said company is run by my mom and dad, and that it is very important to you guys over there.
And this was the first time I'd ever heard about who your parents are, the moment I walked into the office and heard from my boss.
I spoke with you before about the location I've been working at, and that it so happens to be the same company my parents own and manage.
What?
When it comes to the cancellation of this major contract, the main reasons for it are that neither of my parents want to have relations with a company who employs people like you, who judge others based off their education and nothing else, and are willing to openly make horrible remarks about them. And that's what you were told by your boss today, right?
Please, Kate, can you please go and talk with your parents and explain to them that this was all a huge mistake on my part and will never happen again?
I'm really sorry, Davis, but even though I work within their company, I am nothing more than a simple office worker there. Naturally, that means I have no right at all to be telling them what to do with you, especially when you were personally making rude remarks about them.
You're the daughter of the CEO, though!
And if I abuse that position of mine, I will be fired.
Well, do something about that then. Had I freaking known your parents were very important business partners, then I wouldn't have said those things about them and would have been all for your marriage to Roland.
Well, that's not the topic of discussion right now, is it?
What?
No matter who the people you knew about were, the way you acted out and spoke about them was not okay for someone your age. The reason that this contract is being canceled now isn't just because of the way you acted towards the wedding yesterday.
What?
calmest voice, said, "I think you're under a misconception. I'm not a college graduate, but a high school graduate." Davis, who had always prided himself on appearances, looked utterly stunned, as if he'd been hit by a bombshell. He didn't know what to say, and I couldn't help but notice how much that one comment affected him. This revelation might seem insignificant to an outsider, but for Davis, it cut deep. He had always acted with a certain arrogance, believing that his wife, his career, and his life were all perfect and prestigious. To find out that the woman he had been married to for years was not the educated upper-class partner he had assumed her to be must have been a huge blow to his ego. It was as though the foundation upon which he had built his sense of superiority was crumbling before his eyes. Not long after this, Davis chose to resign from his position at the company. Officially, it was a voluntary resignation, but everyone knew the truth. He was forced out. Whether it was due to shame, stress, or simply an inability to deal with the drastic changes in his life, Davis couldn't handle it anymore. He walked away from the career he had worked so hard to build, a career that had once defined his identity. However, walking away wasn't the end of his troubles. Davis was already in his late 50s, and finding a new job at his age, especially after the scandal that surrounded his name, proved to be impossible. He had burned too many bridges over the years, alienating colleagues and subordinates with his overbearing attitude. He had always believed himself to be untouchable, the kind of person who could say and do anything without facing consequences. But now, as he searched for employment, it became painfully clear that no one was willing to help him. From what I've heard, Davis is now living a life far removed from the one he once knew. Gone are the days of high-powered meetings, expensive suits, and the respect he commanded in the corporate world. Instead, he scrapes by doing day labor, picking up whatever odd jobs he can find just to put food on the table. The fall from grace has been steep, and the man who once lived in luxury is now struggling to survive. It's hard not to feel a mix of emotions when I think about Davis. On one hand, his downfall feels like the inevitable consequence of years of poor decisions, both in his professional and personal life. He treated people around him with disdain, always assuming he was better than everyone else. Whether it was his colleagues, subordinates, or even his family, Davis had a way of belittling those who didn't live up to his impossible standards. In the end, that arrogance isolated him, and now, when he needs the help the most, there's no one willing to offer him a hand. He was a man who built his career from the ground up, and in many ways, he deserved the success he achieved. But somewhere along the way, he lost sight of what truly mattered, and that's when everything started to unravel. As for his personal life, the divorce from my mother-in-law was the final nail in the coffin. Their relationship had been strained for years, but Davis had always assumed that his wife would stay by his side no matter what. In his mind, she was a part of the image he wanted to present to the world, an educated, cultured woman who matched his idea of success. But when she revealed that she wasn't the person he thought she was, it was a wake-up call. Suddenly, Davis realized that everything he had built was based on false assumptions. In the end, Davis's life is the cautionary tale of what happens when pride, arrogance, and poor judgment go unchecked. He had everything, career, family, status, but he took it all for granted. Now he spends his days doing menial labor, barely scraping by, while the world moves on without him. It's a lonely, impoverished existence, and it's hard not to imagine the regret he must feel as he looks back on the choices he's made. Thank you for watching and listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought of the story. We look forward to seeing you at the next story.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and hit the like button. See you next time.